Time to look at Chapter 7, which involves acting. It's a unique chapter in that it gives you a good perspective of the different roles people play on screen and off screen in the business. So let's look at acting from a film perspective. It is where the actor uses his imagination, her intelligence, work with psychology. They have to do some memory, but not as intense. Vocal technique is very important, as well as facial expressions, body language, overall knowledge of the filmmaking process, so that under the director's guidance, the character becomes more real, and that has been created by the screenwriter. So the performance and effect related to film acting, initial interest, our interest in a movie is often sparked by the names we hear associated with it, the key actors that draw our interest. In the financial area, the success of a film will be based on the quality of the acting as well as other factors, but the power that actors draw from the audience to attend is frequently one of the most important factors in the success of a film. And then the essential relationship. Screen actors know that the relationship is between the actor and the camera. Not necessarily what the director's saying, but in the end that will influence the look, but still the actor and the camera and how the camera captures the actor's abilities is very important. So there are four main types of actors. Number one is personality actor, someone who has a persona from role to role, something that you draw upon that relates to that actor that you look for. It might be the way they sound, the way they look, their mannerisms. They are pretty well a personality in themselves. Number two, actors who deliberately change their persona to increase our expectations because of the quality of their acting. Chameleon actors, actors who seem to be different in every role. In fact, sometimes you have trouble recognizing them at first in the role they're playing in the film because of how you've known them in the past. And then a fourth is non-professional actors or cast members, where they bring realism to the part because of their past experiences. So they are chosen based upon either a look or a style, but it's not on their acting ability. So four different types of acting. The key person to remember in film acting is Lillian Gish, as she is credited with really developing the art of film acting, screen acting, under D.W. Griffith's guidance, and you'll hear more about him since he did such a successful job in creating movies of interest to a general audience. The ability to attract by a person like Lillian Gish became very important early on to the success of films. And of course, this is the silent era, so it came early in film history in the United States. And the significance also that a woman is portrayed as being the one who developed film acting. Very important to remember. Influence of sound after the silent era. Singing in the Rain profiles it, 1952 film, where if you watch the movie, they will show you the transition to sound. Sound technicians were challenged by how to use microphones, where to put them, where to capture the sound, and how to record it. All of it is shown in one scene where a lot of complications occur, and you can watch that later if you have a desire to do so, but very much profiling that it became more complex with the influence of sound. Monumental conversation and awkward transitions between the use of the voice. The woman actress has a terrible voice for film, and they play that up a lot, which means she's a quality actor in her own right. And then the male roles were more professional, and it gave a nice look at the transition from a stage performance to a film performance. It allows for more human expression and complex narratives. Screenplays with dialogue needed coaches, and that's portrayed in the film as well, and more rehearsals at first, but the way they rehearse is much different than on the stage, and the use of more technology to record sound, mix soundtracks, and also change the sounds to meet the standards that they need in the film. So let's look at the golden era of Hollywood, 1930s into the 1950s. Television eventually disrupts this golden era, or golden age, of classic studio film. There's actors were given a standard 7-year option contract. They stayed with one studio. They didn't move around as much as they do today. And there's 4 classes of performers in film: supporting players, stock players, featured players, and then movie stars. So it kind of moves up the line. Supporting players are in the background of the scenes. Stock players will be doing specific roles to match the atmosphere. Featured players will be people that are assisting, more secondary stars compared to the movie stars. So this is from Elizabeth Taylor's A Place in the Sun in 1951. The idea of her sexual attraction to the male audience, her beauty, as well as her acting talent, kind of the glamorous look of that era. Now we get to method acting. It changed in the 1950s, where Konstantin Stanislavski, who founded the Moscow Art Theater, develops what he called method acting, which is credited mostly to James Dean and his roles and how he prepared for them. It's where the actor uses a past experience, the emotions related to the role, to become more realistic in character. It encourages the actor to speak, move, and gesture in non-traditional stage manner, but just as they would if they were performing the task at hand that's being recorded. So the realism, the subtlety of it created a higher quality acting and changed the star method to a more method acting relating to the role they took on. So screen acting today, use The Rabbit Hole as an example from 2010. Nicole Kidman, who is one of the quality actors of all time, risking her reputation to take on a controversial role and take it where it needs to go. So she would be using more of a method approach to capture the drama of the situation. And they synthesize various movie acting approaches to meet that ability to act. So we're transitioning from a studio production to more independent productions, less studio to more on location. And now actresses and actors have more freedom to choose their roles, negotiate their own earnings, and the one thing they want to always avoid is to be typecast. So typecasting is where an actor is stuck in one role all the time and cannot break out of it. So typecasting means they look a certain way, they act a certain way to meet the standards of a film, so they're always put in that role rather than star status. Now, technology. So this is an interesting shot. If you've seen The Social Network, you might not have known this, but they use special technology for these twins to take the face of one actor and put it on the face of the other actor so they're identical. So if you watched the movie and didn't notice that, that's because of the high CGI use with one face being placed on the other, which means they had recorded in different methods to grab the texture of that face and put it on there. So that's where we're at today as far as difference in acting and the ability to change appearance through digital technology. So in this photo, which was in the Argus Leader several years ago now, it is from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So this is reality here. These actors are wearing special suits with sensors and doing the mannerisms, and even have special stilt type hand objects that they use, and those become the ape in the movie. So anyone wearing the gray suits becomes an ape, and they digitally transform that person in the post-production process. So imagine these actors trying to react to these actors in what the scene calls for. Unique experiences now compared to the early years of acting. Casting. They have a Casting Society of America that goes out and finds actors, tries to discover new ones, or hire very competent actors with a good reputation based on the need. So they maintain resumes and photographs of actors. Screen tests may be done. with some and not with others, depending on past reputations and how they perform. Casting factors, budget, and expected revenues. So like Robert Downey Jr., now Daniel Craig, people like that have such a reputation that they can demand more money per film, which means the cost of the film will go up. It may be based on gender needs, race, ethnicity, and age. At first, they would take a white person and put on makeup to make them African Americans or Native Americans, which is a kind of an insult to all the quality acting you see now. That could have been done many years ago. Ethnicity, age factor, it all relates to the role and factors in who they hire to perform in a film. There are different roles. One will be a major role, where others are minor roles. Some will be stand-ins for the main actor or a stunt person performing a maneuver for that actor. Character roles, bit players, and extras that are put in as needed. If you happen to be traveling on vacation, you could actually run into some shoots going on, and they actually do recruit people coming through to be in films at times. There's cameos, which are actors that have a certain persona that they want to put in the movie. People that will walk on for just a bit part, like Alfred Hitchcock usually did a walk-on in his films, so people would look for him because it became part of his persona. And then animal performers, those that work with animals that are needed in certain roles or actually work and develop the emotions related to the use of an animal in a film. Aspects of a performance, how do they prepare? It's not like a stage play where you get the script, you read it over and over, memorize it until you can do it continuously. There are different types of roles, different demands in a film. Some are very naturalistic that they have to look for, non-naturalistic styles depending on the call, and then improvisational acting where they actually will tell the person, okay, do what your instincts tell you to do, rather than polished, rehearsed movement and words. And then it also relates to a director that likes a certain type of actor or a specific actor, and the two work together to make the movie. So here's kind of a shocking photo for you. The extremes of acting as we see in Christian Bale with The Machinist. Now about, well over 10 years ago. He looked like this before he started preparing for the film, but the role demanded a certain look, so he took it upon himself to starve himself, not eat properly until he looked like that for the film. So it becomes extreme, and is this healthy for the actor? No, I don't think so. But he's dedicated to the role he was playing and decided that's what was needed. Here's another example, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Terry Gilliam's the director, and before the film was complete in 2009 for release, Heath Ledger died. And he complicated the completion simply because not all his parts in the film were recorded and filmed. So they were met with a crisis because this was high in CGI use, and they needed to get the movie out so they could at least recover some of the losses they expected because of Heath's death. So Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell volunteered their performances to help raise money for Heath's daughter after his death. So they had to change the opening scene and change how the Imaginarium, it's called, worked, so that the image of the person who goes into the Imaginarium changed. And that allowed Johnny Depp to play Heath. Jude Law and Colin Farrell all took roles on as Heath Ledger's part in the movie. So if you're interested in that type of study of film, it's kind of a unique situation and shows how creative they can be to recover losses. Preparing for the roles. Synthesis of basic sources. First, the actor will look at the script. They'll relate it to personal experiences they've heard of or did themselves. Also observe how a certain type of person acts in certain situations. And then that will influence other actors to do the same. Or with the role, it becomes a chemistry. So they collaborate with the director on what type of person would play this role, what kind of attitude they need to have on screen. And then different roles have different demands and may change as the film goes along. So all actors have their own approaches to preparing for a film, whether they need a beard or not have a beard, if a woman has to have a longer hair at first or shorter hair. They all plan that out to show changes as the movie goes on. Naturalistic styles. Actors are recreated or recognizable based on human behavior for the camera. So their facial expressions, the way they move, all of that relates to a naturalistic style related to the role. And costume, makeup, and hairstyle will vary with each person, and we could get more into that, but they have special outfits for people to wear to look heavier or thinner, as well as the aging of their face, their hair, that type of thing. To the actors, they have to think, speak, and move in a way people would do off-screen, so that it's convincing on-screen. Non-naturalistic styles. The example is Edward Scissorhands from 1990, where Tim Burton was the director. The idea of a unique person like this with special contraptions instead of hands, that type of thing, a very non-naturalistic approach to a character that Johnny Depp had to play, and it really made him a star in his own right for how he manipulated that acting ability to show an extreme like this. So usually it's excessive, exaggerated, and even calls for overacting at times to convince people of the non-naturalistic approach. Strange costumes, makeup, and hairstyles. It will go beyond the normal range of the human experience. And this will attract audiences simply by word of mouth or images they see before they go to the movie. And often this is found in a horror, fantasy, or action films based on the degree of violence or extremes in the movie. Improvisational acting. They use Taxi Driver, where Robert De Niro is famous for saying, "You talking to me?" And he does that over and over again. A lot of repetition in that scene, along with more jump cuts. So if you've never seen the movie, you could look for it, as De Niro played a very unique character and made the movie a classic. So Taxi Driver, mid-1970s. Extemporizing or playing to the moment is what improvisational is. Usually it's the director and the actor talking through situations, looking at the script, adjusting the script, a dialogue between characters. All of that can be involved with creating a more improvisational approach and the dialogue used. So it's more of an extension of the method or Stanislavski's naturalistic approach to acting. Director and actor collaborations. This is where one actor will latch on to a director or vice versa, and they become one, and they do a lot of movies together. So Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, Tim Burton with Johnny Depp, Spike Lee with Denzel Washington are all examples of how an actor and director become attached and are happy with how a movie progresses, so that film becomes special because of that relationship. How does it affect acting as far as making a film? There's little time for rehearsals. So much of the time they don't even look at the script until the day of or the day before, unless it calls for certain mannerisms like an accent or a certain style of acting. So movies are usually shot out of sequence, so that if a person has a beard towards the end of a film, they will actually shoot those first, and then when the actor has to be more clean cut or shaven, they'll cut the beard off and do those last, because it's harder, it takes longer to grow a beard than it would be to cut it off and create that look. So you may not be aware of these situations, that an actor knows the sequence, it's all plotted out. That's why great planning is needed, so that as it goes through the movie, they know how they have to look, what action they have to put into a scene, what lines they have to say, the emotion that the part calls for. Framing and composition, each actor has a certain style they like to keep, so they will actually demand that a camera be in a certain setup to grab the better qualities, the better side of their face, things like that. And it becomes more of a physical relationship where actors use each other and the overall framing to show significance in how they interpret a shot, the body language, the motion. So those types of things happen all the time. Acting and editing, after the acting is done, then it goes to the editors. They may have to change things or change the shaping of the screen to match the actors' performances. So they'll look at all the shots, they'll shoot it in 2 or 3 different setups, use the best arrangement, juxtaposition the shots in the editing process to cover up errors. And that could be as simple as someone walking into a shot that's not supposed to be there, and they have to change the edit based on that. Then controls the duration of the actor's on-screen appearance through the editing process. So it can create an even bigger impact than the actor thought once it was first shot. So we identify with different things with acting. We identify with a character and who the character they are playing, and whether that character could only be that actor, that no one else could substitute for that actor based on the character being played. Characters who pursue a goal are very important to acting. Characters because of your own behavior as people, something that's realistic that you see as plausible. And the behavior is consistent with our general state of mind, how we're engaged in that role playing. If it's horror, we want to be scared, they have to get that look. So we identify with these different types of character approaches in a movie so we find it more acceptable. So let's look at it again. Criteria for assessing acting on your part. As you watch a movie, ask, is this appropriate? Is this realistic enough for you that it carries on the quality of acting? Transparency, that it's obvious what's going on, that it's more transparent to you, that you can see the quality of the acting through the experience. Inherent thoughtfulness or emotionality. Are they being realistic for the situation they're facing? Are they grabbing the emotional elements or the thoughtfulness that's needed for that moment in the film? Expressive coherence. Are they consistent with what they're doing at the moment it's happening? Do they not seem engaged in it, or are they hitting it right on as far as the expressiveness needed? Then wholeness and unity. It all works together throughout the film. The image maintains the quality of the acting moment. It is whole, it's all one, it's very consistent. He does not change as the movie goes along as far as certain standards related to the character, or it's obvious why it's changed. So unity in all of that, that's how you assess the quality of acting in a film. So that's a quick run through of acting in film in Chapter 7. Next time we talk about editing.